I feel a little awkward making this video because of who wrote this. I'll scroll back up here a second. So this is from Russell M. Nelson's Choices for Eternity Worldwide Devotional. Now, it wasn't to me, so I have just now discovered it because I'm not considered a young adult. We're going to go down here to this section because this is where the real my issue is. And it isn't with the words. It's about with what I hear when you say this. And this is a common problem that we have in that we have well-meaning intentions, but we have not considered how the target audience will view this. So in this particular broadcast, Russell M. Nelson talks about the labels that we are given that define us and describe us in the world. And he talks about them in the order that he believes that they are prevalent. First is a child of God, a son of God, then a son of the covenant. Okay, he took child of God and then made it specific to him. Then a disciple of Jesus Christ. Okay, no gender specific. Devoted member of his restored church. Great. And if he had stopped right there, those are all good. The next two are where we get into the weeds of where I start to wonder what I'm supposed to feel. Next come my honored titles as husband and father, which you could replace with wife and mother. Then apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. Now here, these are the first two problematic ones. 50% or so of the members of the church are single. So those titles of husband, father, wife, mother do not apply to 50% of the church membership. After that, apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, if he had said elder, that would have been different. He had a predecessor years ago who talked about how we are all elders. They combined the high priest and the elders' quorum into one quorum of elders and called us all elders. And yet here he describes himself as an apostle. That's something that very few people will ever become, and only 15 people are at a time, ever. Elder would have been more appropriate. Again, just for the brethren. Then he says, all other labels that have applied to me, such as doctor, surgeon, researcher, professor, lieutenant, captain, PhD, American, so forth, would fall somewhere down the list. Now, here's what I heard when I heard this. After the first three, which are fine, totally appropriate, all the other labels that apply to me fall somewhere down the list. Everything else I've managed to achieve because I'm not married and I don't have kids and I'm not an apostle are meaningless. I'm pretty sure you didn't intend when saying this to convey that message. But since these are things we can control that do not have as much to do with the agency of others, and since the title of apostle is up to God and not up to us, irrespective of how righteous or qualified we may be, especially if you're female, you have now dismissed all other worldly achievements as somewhere down the list. And it really stuck in my craw. My point is here that there are lots of members of the church who will not hear the message the way you hoped it would be resonating in our ears. It seems to imply that all of the other things that we manage to do in this world, we are a failure if we do not rise to high title and prominence in our ward, and if we don't manage to get married and have kids. This is defeating and discouraging in its implications. So I invite you to consider upon the timbre and resonance of this message, because those affect me and they affect members of my family. They affect a lot of people. Now, then he goes on to, the ones that are important here. And then he bashes Americans. And then he talks about politics, which is interesting because right now that's super important in America. But he doesn't go back to these. And so why did you mention these in the first place? If these three are the ones that matter most, I would have not said anything in these two paragraphs or these two. They are counterindicative to the prescription you hope the audience will swallow. And as a medical professional, I would have hoped that you would have considered this before making these utterances. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on this about what I heard, and how I felt. Because people really don't care so much about what you say, but they will remember how you made them feel, and you made me feel like a loser. And I don't think that's what God would want us to think. Anyway, my thoughts. I'm interested in hearing your response. I don't expect one, but if you have one, I'd be interested to hear your comments on my response. Thanks. Godspeed, and may He bless you and keep you. It's good to see, in your case at least, that age is not the impediment that we all believe it could be. Godspeed. Good luck.